Tuck Talk is back here for a special Christmas edition. We hope that you guys have a great holiday season and are having a great time as the Christmas break has come upon us here, not just at Florida State University, but all throughout the city of Tallahassee. People getting away. Hope you're spending time with your loved ones and you're kind of relaxing a little bit as 2021 is just around the corner. And of course, we all hope that in this pandemic era that 2021 is a little bit better than 2020 was for us. All right, Ariya, Massoudi and Bob Ferrante joining you is, again, Tuck Talk. We've got a lot to cover. It's been a couple of weeks since we last spoke to you. Florida State right now at 5-1 after 6 games. And before we break down the last few games of what Florida State did, obviously they had some really good wins against Indiana and Florida. They had a bit of a head-scratching loss against UCF, and then some performances against Georgia Tech and Gardner-Webb where I don't know that Florida State played its best basketball game, but that they found ways to win by double digits, and that's always a sign of a good team. If you don't play your best game and you win by double digits, that's a really good sign. I mean, it means that, you're still finding ways to be much better than your opponent on your C or C- game. So, Bob, let me ask you this before we start. 6 games into the year. Is this about where you thought Florida State would be, 5-1?
When you remove the element of exhibition games, and then you factor in that Gardner-Webb was going to be game 1 and then became game 6, I think you have to be really content with 5-1. And I emphasize the word content. You're not thrilled. You'd love to be 6-0. Nobody's going to be really happy after a loss to UCF, but I think that's a better UCF team with a Mr. Basketball from the state of Florida, a couple of really good transfers. A Texas A&M kid just lit it up in the second half. But 5-1 with all the new pieces. Again, remember you lost 2 lottery picks and Trent Forrest is playing for Utah Jazz in the NBA. Yeah, a lot of moving pieces. And I think Leonard Hamilton said it well Monday night, not in panic mode, feels good about where they are, but knows what the road is ahead, knows what they have to work on.
No doubt about that. Florida State knocks off Indiana in overtime. Big win there over the Hoosiers in the Big Ten Challenge. You get a bit of revenge over last year when you lost at Assembly Hall. And then you beat Florida by double digits in a game that I think before we even talk about it, we have to continue to send our well wishes and our prayers and thoughts to Keontae Johnson and his family. The news has been a lot better since the day that he collapsed at the Tuck. And there was a moment there where people really didn't know what was going to happen. He was in a coma, medically induced coma, and there was some struggle there. They thought that there would be some problems, and thank God that he's found a way to kind of make it through. He's out of the hospital. He's been discharged, and they are hoping that he makes a full recovery. And it was great to see the full ad in the Tallahassee Democrat today, him thanking Florida State University, the medical staff at Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, Amanda Robinson and that entire crew who's always at the Tuck, the training staff for Florida State. It really was amazing to see Keontae get back on his feet and start, he's talking again with his teammates and his family, and it looks like he's going to be okay. Now, what that means for his basketball career, obviously, the report came out, earlier that he might have the myocarditis, which is something that has been linked to COVID, which he did have. And so we really don't know much about it, right? As a country, as a planet all over the world, we don't know about this heart issue. And it's taken the lives of a couple of really important people close to Florida State as well. And I think as they research what this means for an enlarged heart because of this virus, or if it has anything to do with the virus, and they can have multiple trials and clinical trials on it. We'll find out more about what this means for college basketball and college athletics, but we're happy to see Keontae be okay.
Yeah, it was as scary a scene, I think, as I've ever seen in all my years covering sports, all different levels. I'm just so thrilled. And just that he's back home, not in the hospital. And Florida State folks, everybody from administrators to doctors, trainers, took care of him like he was one of their own. I think that was what was really cool to see, was that, rivalries were quickly set aside so that they could take care of Keontae. And, it's looking like we won't see him on the court the rest of this season. And that's something we're going to have to kind of set aside. But hopefully for the long term, he can come back on the court, whether it's college basketball, NBA, down the road. Can't wait. I think we'll all be kind of standing up and cheering his first time back on the court.
No doubt about it. I think he's got himself a fan club now that expands well beyond Gator Nation. I think that he has the hearts and the thoughts and prayers of everyone, you know. And I think everyone's a Keontae Johnson fan now going forward. And best of luck to him and his family as he continues to recover. And Godspeed on a speedy recovery. And we want to see you playing basketball again, healthy, because he is a damn good basketball player. I mean, that's the SEC preseason player of the year, probably a first round draft pick. If not a first round draft pick, he's definitely a second round draft pick and has a spot in the NBA on a roster somewhere. So we're hoping everything checks out okay for him there, and hope to see you back on the court soon, Keontae. So that being said, Florida State wins that game by double digits. Weird game to assess because you really don't know the headspace of either team at that point, especially the Gators. I'm not sure how much we can put stock in that win for Florida State, other than you got 7 in a row against Florida, which is awesome. That should be something that's celebrated. That's besides the point of what happened on that day. The dominance Florida State has shown in that series is fantastic. But Bob, I think when I look at, just for the sake of moving through this podcast quickly, let's pair together the good, which was Indiana, Florida, Georgia Tech, 3-game win streak there. Florida State, I thought, rebounded the ball really well, especially offensively. They attack the glass, they get to the free throw line, and we can talk about this one with Gardner Webb. But up until that point, Florida State was one of the best three-point shooting teams in the entire country, at number 12 in the country, 41% as a team entering the game against Gardner Webb. So I thought those three things: you shoot the three ball, free throws, you're making your free throws and you're getting to the line, and you're rebounding offensively at a really good rate. That's usually a recipe for success.
And I think where you have certain shortcomings on a particular night, you make up for it in another area. You have enough strengths that overcome those deficiencies. And when you're having a team that, Leonard Hamilton's tried to explain it, and I think the best way just to say it is the chemistry is still being formed between the veterans and the newcomers. It's not like this is a young team. It's a really old team for college basketball standards. But when you think about the different moving pieces blending together and what you show on the court each night, they're still feeling that out. I have some mild concerns about the free throw shooting. Like, I think it should be consistent every night. We were talking about it with Matt Minnick, and, free throw shooting should be, rhythm. It should be mental, and it should kind of travel with you, home, road, whatever. So that's one kind of just a little early head scratcher, I think. But we feel like there's just enough positives right now with this team where, it's going to kind of overcome some of those, shortcomings night in, night out.
Yeah, I think I love your point about the free throw shooting, because actually, interestingly, chatting with Michael Rogner, who, and Matt Minnick, who do Tomahawk Nation, and they do a great job covering Florida State basketball. FSU this year is getting to the free throw line at a ridiculous clip. Last year was kind of it was a little bit different. They weren't getting to the line as much, but when they were getting there, they were one of the best free throw shooting teams in the country, which is why, like, at times last year, we were thinking, how is FSU not getting to the line more often? This year, FSU's getting to the line at a ridiculous rate. I mean, they're attempting like 20 free throws a game. And it's been upwards of 25 to 30 in some matches, in some contests this year. They're not making them nearly as much. And when you see an 11 for 21 performance against Indiana, when you see a 16 of 26 performance against UCF, that's a little worrisome. But the thing is, I'm not sure that they have great free throw shooters on this particular team. They have some, but the guys who play and who get to the rim, the Scotty Barnes, the Raekwon Grays of the world, those are not great free throw shooters. Balsha's getting to the line. I don't know. I think Balsha has the potential to be a much better free throw shooter. And Polite's really struggled a little bit from the free throw line. And those two, I think, if they kind of remedy as the season goes along, if Balsha and Anthony Polite, can be more consistent from the free throw line, I do think this team could have a solid free throw shooting team. MJ is going to shoot at a pretty good clip. I think, some of the other guards on the team, when they get to the line, will shoot a pretty good clip. Evans needs to do a little bit better job, and we'll talk about Raekwon Evans in a little bit. But if you're going to get to the line this much, it can be a real weapon in games. And as you said, it can mask some deficiencies. Another point that you made that I really loved, the chemistry on this team. people have to realize, I got some tweets after Florida State's loss to UCF in the mentions, upwards of like 50 of the culture's too good for FSU to play like this. The culture's too good for FSU to play like this. Yes, the culture is still very good at Florida State. Here's the problem. This is a completely new team than the team that played a year ago. You've heard in football, you've heard in basketball, every team has a 1-year shelf life. The team Florida State had last year was not the same team with T-Man and Phil Kofer and PJ Savoy and Chris Kumaji and all those guys. And that team was not the same as Brian Angola, and having the guys the year before. This is a very different Florida State basketball team. The chemistry is different from year to year. And here's what hurt Florida State. The pandemic made it impossible for them to get in the gym together in the summer and play. The guys, from being in that building, trust me on this, I'm in the BTC quite often when I'm allowed. The summer is such an important thing for these players because they pick up and they play 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5 with each other without the coaching staff there. And they're building this chemistry together. And that's where culture is at its best, is when the culture is doing great and these guys are bringing each other to practice. They couldn't do that this summer. Balsha Koprivica said, I had really no time with my brothers. I had to do a lot of individual workouts on my own at home. So they really had this taken away from them. They didn't get to practice in August. They didn't get to do those, the sand pit that Leonard loves to get them in at 5:00 in the morning over by the Capitol. They lost a lot of time to really work on foundational and fundamental pieces. And I said this the other night, this is happening not just at Florida State, but in college basketball. Duke lost twice at home by double digits at Cameron Indoor Stadium. Kentucky is 1-5 as of today. It's a Michigan State lost to Northwestern by 14. When's the last time you heard that? It's a weird year where I don't think the regular season, you should put as much stock into it. Now don't get me wrong. You don't want 10 losses in the regular season, but there will be some growing pains and teams, Bob, will be better in February than they were in December.
I use this term a lot. I think maybe people get tired of it, but baby steps. And a lot of 2020 is baby steps, try to take a step forward. To your point, I think a lot of it too is increased roles for veterans. Anthony Polite, I believe he now has 4 double-digit scoring games in 6 games. Last year he didn't have that many where he had 10 or more points. Balsha is now, and you can make this comment about starter, not starter, and I get it. I'm not trying to make that. Balsha is being leaned on as a starter for more minutes. More set players are being run toward him. Raekwon Gray, same kind of thing. He's being looked to more. So you kind of go more from that. I'm more of a deferential role player supporting a Vassell, a Williams, a Trent, whoever, toward the I'm elevated and I've got to be a guy who's looked to every night. And that mindset changes. And you have to, it changes every time you're going down the court and you're part of that, okay, the ball's rotating around and who's going to take the shot. And we still see sometimes where we're watching that half-court offense and guys are still not sure, is that my time to take that shot? And, of course, when it's an open 3, you're taking it because that's what you're supposed to do. But we're still kind of seeing the feeling out period with this team, and guys are just trying to figure out their roles. That's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and all right, so let's talk a little bit about UCF and Gardner-Webb. The UCF game, so Florida, what was it, Bob, 41 game non-conference home win streak, I think. It was like 27 in a row. Yeah, 41 non-conference, 27 regardless. It snapped at the Tucker Center. I think people thought, Florida State would never lose again at the Tuck. And maybe with 12,000 people in the arena, that streak's still going. It's just where we're at right now in college basketball. The energy is not there in arenas. Florida State's lucky to have 2,000, 3,000 people in the seats in general, but it's just not the same. And you have to create your own energy. And I truly and thoroughly believe home court advantage means less than it ever has in the sport this season. Yes, you want to shoot on your own basket. You definitely want to shoot in a gym that you're comfortable with the sight lines and you've been in a million times. But but there's no energy anymore. I mean, the crowd's not going to will you to a victory, and there's not going to be that 18-2 run where the other team needs to take a timeout because the crowd's just too loud and the guys can't hear each other, and they're just kind of, maybe just a little frazzled. That's not happening anymore. And that's why we're seeing FSU go on a 12-0 run and UCF come back with a 16-0 run. That's just going to happen. And FSU is going to do this on the road too. They're going to play Clemson on Tuesday, coming up here next Tuesday after the holiday break. And Clemson's not going to, the Little John Coliseum is one of the best home court atmospheres in all of college basketball. You know what Clemson did last year on its home court. They're not going to have that advantage. And so just be prepared for this to be a lot like holiday tournaments that you're used to seeing, whether Florida State's in the Old Spice Classic or in a gym somewhere where, only families they're clapping for them. That's just how this year goes. But against UCF, I was disappointed for the first time, I think, watching FSU play basketball. And it wasn't because I didn't think they were playing hard. I didn't think they were as mentally sharp. And I think they might have taken for granted playing a UCF team on a Saturday at 9:00 on their own home court. And that's a really good UCF team. I don't know if they're an excellent UCF team, but they did just beat Cincinnati following up the win against FSU. That's a UCF team that Johnny Dawkins can coach. And if you remember, the Knights 2 years ago should have beaten with Taco Fall, should have absolutely beaten Duke, RJ Barrett, and Zion Williamson. They should have. And they got heartbroken right at the end. It was just an absolute heartbreaker in the NCAA tournament. People, I think, look at UCF and it pains them because let's be real, it's an annoying fan base. They're an annoying fan base. They're constantly looking for the attention and the confirmation. And there are other words for it too. That they're always looking for that acceptance from the rest of the state and the country for their athletic sports teams. And maybe it comes from football, but their basketball program deserves some praise. I was thoroughly impressed with their three guards, Green, Adams, Mahan. They were awesome, and they can play ball, and they have got a chance, I think, to be a basketball team. But we're not here to talk about UCF. Florida State, I thought, just defensively, I haven't seen Florida State defensively get beaten like that in a really long time.
Yeah, I'm struggling to think about the last time that three guys combined for 74 points against Florida State. Because you can think, Duke had two guys one year that just put up points.
Maybe that was it, right?
Carolina
with Reddish.
did that.
Yeah.
Exactly. It happens. The things that jumped out to me, the two things, defense, obviously, yeah. UCF out-rebounded Florida State. It was just 32-25, so not a huge margin, but still considerable when you think about second chance points. The other thing that kind of jumped out was, free throws. Florida State missed 10. They were 16-26. That's where you can't miss 10. I think it's just kind of a magic number when you miss that many free throws. Well, yeah, you probably deserve to lose. UCF, I think when people are going to look back on this one, it's like, why did Florida State lose to them? But it's part of that brand. You look at the name on the jersey and you say they shouldn't lose to them. But if you look at the talent, 1 through 5, 1 through 6, it's not a deep team, but those are some good starting five. That's a good starting five right there. It's not as embarrassing when you really look at it and you say, wow, they have transfer talent. They have a Mr. Basketball from the state of Florida. And Florida State, frankly, just had an off night, and I think took UCF, honestly, for granted, just didn't bring it as well as they could have.
I do want to make one point. So that game was actually supposed to be played in Sunrise at the Panthers hockey arena where Florida State plays every year. So Florida State and UCF were supposed to be a neutral site game. I actually don't know. I do know for a fact that they are playing again next year. Florida State will have its chance at revenge, just like they did with Indiana. So Noles fans, if you're listening, FSU UCF will play again next season. I don't know if I'm trying to figure out if I was told if it's at the Tucker Center again, or if it's at UCF, or if they're going to try and get that game at the Orange Bowl Classic. Because I know those guys they had to cancel that event this year. If it's in Tallahassee, that place is going to be a zoo when UCF comes to town, because a lot of fans will be, and hypothetically speaking, everything's back to normal by next year. People will be ready for FSU UCF Part 2 if it's in Tallahassee. And if it's at UCF and it's in Orlando, They love when Florida State or Florida comes to town. So you can expect an absolute bonkers gym in Orlando. I don't know the name of their gym, so I'm blanking on the name of their forum. I'm sure I'm going to get a UCF friend of mine who's going to text me and go, how do you not know this? But FSU, UCF, they'll get another chance. If you're an FSU fan this year, root for UCF. You have to. You need them to be as good as possible so that loss looks as good as possible, to say it matter-of-factly. All right, Gardner-Webb, FSU shot like 5 of 36 from three. It's one of the worst three-point shooting percentages FSU's ever had, dating back to, I think, like Gonzaga in the NCAA tournament that one year. Not used to it, especially when FSU was a 41% three-point shooting team. Bob, they were on 2 days rest, or 1 day rest, really, because they only got Sunday off and then had to play Monday. Gardner-Webb didn't shoot the basketball well either, and they were one of the best three-point shooting teams coming in the country. A weird game. I have a hard time assessing it. Fans were wondering why it was a 5-point game with 5 minutes left. And it's because I think, if anything, Bob, Florida State fell in love with the three-point shot, even when they weren't making it and needed to get to the rim. My takeaways from that, and it's really been one throughout the season, the only thing I can take away from Gardner-Webb is, one, I don't think Florida State will shoot that poorly again this year. That's a good three-point shooting team that FSU has. And two, who's the point guard? Because I think we're struggling to figure out if Scotty Barnes can handle a half-court offense, if Raekwon Evans is comfortable in his new role, taking over for Trent. Raekwon Gray, he does some things well for his size, and he's an above-average ball handler, but I don't think he's the one you want playing point guard. And we're seeing too many times where the shot clock hits 8 seconds and FSU's in scramble mode because they just haven't been able to effectively move the ball in a half-court set. So those are the questions I have, and I use those in the scope of they've only played 6 games. And it's a new team without Trent Forrest, who will have his jersey retired at Florida State. His jersey will hang in the rafters. You lost a really important piece. You're still trying to figure out who takes over that role. And you also really didn't have much time in the summer or in the fall to kind of figure that out. So those were my takeaways from these 2 games.
You just described a perfect storm with all those different elements kind of converging right there. I think Leonard Hamilton said it best in the months leading up to the year. Who was going to, replace, fill the shoes, all those bad cliches that we all use for Trent Forrest. Who was going to be the starting point guard, bottom line? Because Trent did so much that, we don't see in the box score. And to be determined is probably the best answer. We don't have clear answers. We know that at times Scotty Barnes and his vision is magnificent. It's really fun to watch a player with that kind of basketball IQ because he sees stuff that, we don't see. It's fun, right? And then there are times where Scotty Barnes looks like a freshman playing Game 6. And I think it's just hard to admit that it's going to, again, take time. You don't exactly have a veteran who you feel you can truly lean on. It's clear that Raekwon Evans isn't comfortable with that added responsibility, whether it's minutes, starting, whatever you kind of want to qualify it. Is Anthony Polite as an option? I don't think MJ Walker is, because you want him on the wing. He's a scorer. You want him kind of doing stuff without the ball in his hand. So there's still a lot of question marks, but we've also given the staff 6 games to evaluate and a week to kind of find solutions, to kind of work through this and that. And I think they'll kind of come back with maybe some, hopefully, solutions, but at least things that they want to try moving forward, just to kind of see if those pieces work.
Yeah, I think we all kind of agreed after that Gardner-Webb game, just the media sitting up there, this team needs a break. This team looks like it could use the week off just to kind of mentally recalibrate a little bit. It's been a tough week emotionally, watching a tough couple weeks, obviously with Keontae Johnson being in the middle of that. It's just kind of been an emotional week, I think, for Florida State, a couple weeks. And just a lot of basketball has been played in the last, they played a game Saturday and then Monday. So they need the time off. And I'm excited to see how they come back out against the Clemson Tigers. And we'll preview the Clemson Tigers, but a player that I thought has really stepped up this year, Anthony Polite. He's been just a Swiss Army knife, and I don't mean that in hyperbole or or with a pun, because Anthony actually, I believe, was born in Switzerland. His dad was playing professional basketball at the time. That's a funny pun there. Swiss Army knife. And he has been, though, I mean, he does everything well. He's shooting the basketball at an elite rate. He rebounds. He's handling the ball better, attacking. He's been a lot of fun to watch. And we'll talk more Anthony here because it'll be fitting right in to this next segment for us. Let's do some Christmas superlatives, shall we? It is the holidays, and we'll have some fun with this. So give me your Christmas wish list for Florida State.
I've enjoyed it. I think Anthony is the guy who has kind of come out of nowhere. And I'm really pleased to see that. He's really taken on a special role. But I think the big thing, like if there's a number one wish list item, it's let's see some consistent defense from these guys. And I think that is something truly that Florida State can fix, quote unquote, in practice. You can kind of drill it down. So I think that's probably at the top of the wish list.
Yeah, I think for me, it's better free throw shooting. I want to see more consistent free throw shooting. I'd like to also see a point guard kind of emerge and run the offense. I think Scotty Barnes can be a good point guard if he continues to develop, but there are times where he still kind of looks stagnating and stagnant, trying to figure out what to do against a half court set, whether it's man-to-man defense or a zone defense that teams are throwing at him. And then, my last wish list item for Florida State is like you. I want to see the Noles create more turnovers. They've really struggled a little bit on the defensive side to turn teams over. And I'm looking at some of these box scores, and it's just 13, 14, 12, and that's just not Florida State. Florida State wants to turn you over 17, 18 times a game because that's a big part of their defense. It's not a great half-court defensive team. Leonard Hamilton said as much after one of the games in the Zoom. He said, we really are struggling to contain the dribble. And what that means is you're not a great half-court. You're not a great half-court team. Virginia is a great half-court basketball team, half-court defensive basketball team. FSU, when teams are doing a pretty good job, they attack the rim, they make shots at the rim, and if they don't, FSU fouls them. And they also get a lot of three-point opportunities, open three-point opportunities, because of FSU's aggressive defense. The one saving grace that FSU has had the last couple of years, and, it doesn't mean, I'm not saying FSU has a bad defense. It has an elite defense when it's doing this right here. You've got to create turnovers. You've got to get high in the passing lanes and block some shots at the rim. When you do those things, you're almost like a cover zero blitz team in football, right? You're sending 8 or 9 all the time. It looks pretty when you're making sacks and you're destroying the quarterback's eyes and he can't see down the field. But if they get past it, there's going to be some yards to have and some scores. That's FSU basketball's defense in a lot of ways. And I'm sure Leonard will work on the half-court portion of it and try and get that to be as best as he can. But that'll get better, I think, again in January and February as the guys understand rotations and how to talk on defense, how to cover for each other, help side, switching. We haven't seen the 1 through 5 switching work as well as it did a year ago. And that could be for a number of reasons that we can get into on another podcast. But defense for me is something as well, and creating turnovers and getting into transition, because that is also one of Florida State's best offenses is when they can get into transition and score off their defense. All right, so who gets the coal in the stocking? Which player do you need to see more from?
I almost feel bad busting on Malik Osborne a little bit, but we've just seen some games where I think on the offensive end, he just hasn't seemed in sync just yet. I think we know what Malik can bring to the table and will bring to the table. It's just, did he have 2 games with 0 points or just 1? But it just felt like, it just kind of felt weird. Like, man, Malik should be given a little bit more. So, but a guy that we know works hard, and I think we know he's going to come around. It felt kind of weird to see that early on. Yeah,
I think Malik's one for me as well. That and we say coal in the stocking. We don't mean you're a bad basketball player. That's not at all what we're saying. I think we're just having some fun with the Christmas theme. But guys that I feel like do need to step up a little bit more. I think Osborne's been good in the energy department. I think he's rebounding really well, especially offensively. He's grabbing a ton of offensive boards, and maybe he had 8 points against Gardner Webb. Maybe that kind of starts to get him going a little bit. In the same boat, I've wanted to see more from Raquan Evans as well. Raquan, I think, has so much left in the tank, and he had 8 points against Gardner Webb, hit a couple of threes. I know Leonard said that, Ham said that he was affected pretty majorly by what he saw with Keontae Johnson because he had seen something similar in his basketball career early on. So it really shook him to see that again. And maybe it's taken him some time to get over that and move past it. But he had a nice game. I thought he played as well as he has all season against Gardner Webb. And then one more player. Where's Sardar Calhoun been? We had all this hype about the X factor, and you look at him and he bounces around like a rabbit. I mean, he's athletic, he's bouncy, he moves so well. He's lightning fast down the court, and he's supposed to have an elite jump shot. And we've seen it at times that he's got a great 3-point shot, and we've seen in stretches and in little glimpses. We've seen a pull-up jumper, an offensive and a floater attacking the rim. He's got the ability to dunk. I just feel like he hasn't gotten fully comfortable and immersed in the D1 level yet. And maybe it's defensively. Leonard isn't happy with what he's given you on the defensive end. And everyone knows that unless you defend at Florida State, you're not getting on the court. We saw that with PJ Savoy. It took a while for them to be able to trust him for extended minutes. Maybe that's something Sardar Calhoun in January and February, you see him come on because he's starting to grasp a few more of the finite things in the Leonard Hamilton defense and the program as a whole. Those are the three for me. Evans, Calhoun, Osborne. I think I want to see more from all of them. And I think we will, honestly. I feel like all three guys are over the age of 21. Those are not young players. And it's just an adjustment period with new roles and a new scene in the case of Sardar Calhoun. All right. Who gets to eat Santa's cookies? Who's been the most valuable player for Florida State so far this year?
I feel like there's so many good answers. MJ has just been, when he's been on, he's been really on. I kind of feel like, again, Anthony Polite or Balsa, because those guys have come a long way from when we last saw them, February or March, to now. They're being asked to do so much. I just look at, you can tell Anthony Polite's done a lot in the offseason. You can tell Balsa a year or two is more comfortable. I think those are two guys I look to and say, if they can take yet another step in this ACC schedule and continue to consistently give you production, shooting, rebounding, assists. I mean, Polite does a little bit of everything, and his box scores are really impressive to look at the end of the night. I think those two are probably at the top of my list.
All right, well, I like the Polite pick, but since you picked him, I'll pick Raquan Gray. I think he has been such a revelation for Florida State this season. We always remember, Bob, and fans listening, we've all talked about it for years, that we've seen glimpses of Draymond Green with Raquan Gray. And we've seen this guy who's 260 pounds and moves so well for his size, handles the rock, has elite vision, can pass it, can shoot it a little bit. He shot the basketball a little bit better this year from three. And he's clearly down in weight a little bit. And he's quicker with the ball in his hands. He's more aggressive. He's rebounding. He's handling the basketball and bringing the ball up the court this year for FSU. To me, he has been almost the most valuable player that FSU has. And we saw against UCF and against Gardner Webb, when he wasn't on the court, things were not going well for FSU. And he makes a big-time difference for the Seminole team. And me and Matt Minnick were actually talking about it. Who is the leader on this year's Florida State team? Who's the guy that everyone can kind of look to? And we're not sure MJ has that personality. We're not really sure that MJ, and I don't want to say MJ's not a leader. I'm not sure that MJ is the alpha in a huddle or in a locker room. MJ's more of the easygoing, laid back, trying to have a good time, good vibes guy. He's awesome to talk to, and he's a good kid. Who steps up and kind of is that guy in the huddle that everyone kind of brings together? It used to be T-Man. And then it was Trent Forrest. And before T-Man, it was Brian Angola Rodas. So who is the guy? And Matt Minnick said maybe it could be Raekwon Gray. You might be right. It could be Gray. And it might have to be a tag team effort. But so far, everyone's kind of looking to Gray as kind of this leader, this kind of relaxed presence. And he's been awesome. I've been so impressed with him. And he's working himself into an NBA player. Slowly but surely, that kid is about to get a chance to make some at the next level. And it's been fun to watch. All right, who's the best present so far? I know this has been it's kind of a similar question, but if we're talking about Christmas gifts, who's been the best Christmas gift for FSU so far?
I kind of lean towards Scotty just because he's kind of that shiny new toy that you got under the tree. And when he is on, when he does what he does, which seems to be go to the basket and put it off the glass and take a shot with a very high degree of difficulty, similar in some ways to Terrence Mann, I think, who liked to take those really high degree of difficulty shots. Scotty's just been so fun to watch. And to have that, yes, he's had a couple of off games here and there, but to have that kind of clutch, I want the ball in this huge moment and I'm going to do something because I feel like I can do it. Not just I need to. I feel like I can do it. And that's been really fun to watch with Scotty.
I'm going to go with Anthony Polite on this one since I haven't, gotten to mention him yet in terms of the other superlatives. He's doing everything, man. I mean, he is rebounding. He's getting 8 and 9 rebounds a game like it's nothing. He's getting to the free throw line. He's shooting over 50% from 3. And that left corner, by the way, for Anthony Polite is money. If he gets into the left wing, Anthony Polite's making it. And the misses have been in and outs. Like they've rimmed in and out. He is on from that side of the floor. He's attacking the basket aggressively. He's dunking. I mean, he has been, hustle plays, elite defender. Anthony Polite is another one who's taken a step forward. And that was part of the recipe we thought for FSU to be good again, like they were a year ago, was the Grays, the Osbornes, the Polites, that they would all have to take a step forward in their progressions. The Koprovitsas, because MJ is still a constant. MJ is still giving you constant MJ, right? Like that's the same MJ we've known, and he's maybe even a little bit better than he was last year. So give me Polite on that one. And then my last one is who's pulling Santa's sleigh? Who is the Rudolph reindeer at the top? And I think you and I might agree on this one.
I think MJ is really trying to
Bingo.
Kind of will and pull this team along, and they're going to go as MJ goes. But if he can kind of elevate everyone around him, that this team's going to do just fine.
Yeah, I'll go MJ as well. He's shooting the 3 ball well. He has perfected his craft of becoming a jump shooter, I think, and finding his offensive game, getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line. You just look up sometimes and you're like, MJ has 18. And it's the most quiet 18 you've ever seen. And he's still hitting big shots against Indiana, big time 3, to kind of get Florida State back in that game. Against UCF, he hit some big shots to try and keep Florida State in it, within 3 or 4 points late. Georgia Tech, he hit some big shots. He is your classic 4th-year senior at a school. He is your classic senior. He's played college basketball. He's been through everything, tough wins, tough losses. He's been through blowout wins, blowout losses, tournaments, ACC, NCAA. He's played 5 games in 10 days, 3 games in 5 days. He's done it all. And MJ Walker has definitely been the leader of the clubhouse for FSU this year. He's the guy I think that other than Scotty Barnes because of the talent, you circle on your scouting report as guys that you just cannot let get going. Because if MJ Walker gets going, it's going to be a long afternoon for any defense. And so I'll give MJ the nod there. All right, Bob, let's talk a little bit about Clemson before we wrap up. Only a couple more minutes. This is going to be a tough game for FSU. This is a Clemson team as I pull up Ken Pom. We really love Ken Pomeroy and his advanced stats. They do a really good job of giving us an idea of what teams are like at an accurate level. Clemson is currently ranked let's see if I can get it. 21st in the country by Ken Palm. They're 6-1, and they have pretty good wins on the year. They've beaten Mississippi State by 11, Purdue by 11, and those were both to open the year on a neutral court during Thanksgiving. They have a win against Maryland, a good but not great Maryland team, but they beat them by 16. They beat Alabama on a neutral court by 8, 64-56. The only loss of the year is on the road to a solid Virginia Tech team, 66-60. Here's what stands out about Clemson, folks. They have the number 2, saying it again, the number 2 ranked defense in the country. Nobody has scored a point per possession against Clemson this season. Not a single team. They held South Carolina State to 38 total points. Mississippi State, they held to 42 points. And those were 68 and 65 possession games. So, yeah, if you thought Florida State's offense struggled a little bit at times this year, they're about to play the best defense they've faced, and maybe by a wide margin. Clemson is causing turnovers. Teams are turning the ball over 18, 19 times a game. They're 7th in the country in forcing turnovers. They're 16th in the country in field goal percentage defense. They are top 50 in three-point percentage defense. They're getting steals. They're blocking shots. They're not a great offensive team. As I'm looking here, 77th in offensive efficiency. And if you thought Florida, I know I've been getting some tweets and some comments and texts that FSU's offense sucks. FSU's offense is top 30 in the country in efficiency. So if you think that sucks, I don't know what you think about Clemson's offense, because they have struggled to score the basketball. They do shoot a lot of three-point shots. They take a ton of threes. And, other than that, they're turning the basketball over quite a bit, as all Brad Brownell basketball teams do. They do not protect the basketball well. And, they don't get to the free throw line, as I'm looking here. They don't rebound particularly well, offensively or defensively. Circle that if you're FSU. FSU is a great offensive rebounding team. Clemson, not a great defensive rebounding team. That could be a chance for FSU. They're a good free throw percentage shooting team, but they don't get there a whole lot. Ranking in the bottom 10, 15% of the country in getting to the free throw line. So I'm looking at Clemson. They're going to chuck up a ton of threes. They, that seems to be the offense, is dribble around for a while. They're a very slow-paced offense. Not going to be a back and forth, up and down game. I think Brad Brownell learned a lot from when they beat FSU a year ago in the Little John Coliseum. Slow the game down and try and grind FSU to a low scoring game. And they're going to try to do that. I really believe he wants to play this game in the high 50s, low 60s in terms of points, if he can, to beat Florida State. In terms of players, let's see. The names that you'll know, Alamir Dawes. He hit the game-winning layup against FSU a season ago. He's been pretty good. They got a transfer, Nick Honor. He came from, I can't remember the school that he came from, but it was a smaller school, and he's their best three-point shooter at 42%, shoots a ton of them. Amir Sims is battling for ACC Player of the Year, first-team All-ACC. He's kind of your 6'8", 245-pound, can do a little bit of everything. It was big for them to get him back. And then Clyde Trapp, John Newman are both names that have been at Clemson for a while. Older guys, senior and a junior, and they both had really good games against Florida State a year ago when the Noles lost to the Tigers at Little John. So, yeah, we'll see how FSU does, Bob. I think the keys for FSU here are going to be interesting, right? I think it's get to the offensive line. Get to the offensive glass. Get to the free throw line. And if you can hit some threes in the process and show that you're a decent shooting team again, you can maybe win a close game. Ken Palm doesn't love Florida State in this. They only give FSU a 40% chance. They've got Clemson winning 68-65. Both teams are going to come off of a long stretch of not playing basketball. It's going to have been about, over a week for both teams. And this will be interesting. It's really your first road ACC game for FSU. What are you looking for?
I think we want to see answers to some of our questions. Has Florida State kind of figured out some of the things as far as who's the go-to guy as the point guard? Is the rebounding going to be improved? Free throw shooting, you're going to have to make those. It should be a tight game. If you make them, you got a real good chance to win that game on the road. I think we see enough deficiencies where the door is open for Clemson. On the other hand, Clemson is got a good starting five and also deeper than in past years. So that's going to be a real challenge. But, Florida State has played some tough games already. It's going to open up, this kind of new restart to the ACC schedule with Clemson and Duke. Those are probably the top two teams right now. They are legitimately the top two teams from the ACC in the Ken Palm rankings. So, no easy starts as they dip back into ACC play toward the end of the month.
Yeah, I think if FSU scores 70 in this game, they win. I think that's kind of the magic number. If you can get a 70 piece, you're going to win this basketball game. So only one team has gotten 70 on Clemson all year. It was Purdue. And Florida State, I don't believe, has scored less than 70 in a game this year. I'm double checking to make sure I got that right. No, they scored 69. Okay. So Florida State hasn't, basically 70. My point still stands. But yeah, that's the magic number. I think if you get to 70, you feel good about a win at Little John, because Clemson's going to want to play that game in the high 50s, low 60s in terms of points. All right. Women's basketball, Bob, Florida State 3-1, bounced back after a tough loss against Clemson with a solid second half against Pitt, a solid fourth quarter. Again, we don't really know much about this team. Brooke Wyckoff is trying to figure out pieces. Isabella Nicoletti's getting healthier at the point guard position, still turning the ball over too much, and I think she's going to be someone that can help remedy that. They're still waiting on Tiana England, the transfer from St. John's, if she can get medically cleared to play. Maybe Aaron Howard can jump in there, the transfer from Auburn, in January as well. But Courtney Weber has been a nice surprise, Bob. She has played really good basketball, and so has Morgan Jones. And so we'll see what Florida State can do. They're still very much a work in progress. As much as the men are, the women have had more postponements and cancellations. So we won't have a really good gauge on that team probably until the end of January.
Yeah, I think we've seen some bright spots for sure. Like you mentioned, Courtney Weber, she had 21 in that game up at Clemson. But three-point shooting was a big question mark for this team a year ago when they went up to Clemson, 4 of 19. So that's a challenge. This team has to figure out if it can make threes consistently. That loosens up the inside shots. When you play a zone defense against Florida State's going to have to make some of those threes to kind of bust that zone, or else the Seminoles are going to see a lot of it moving forward, I would have to imagine. But like you said, it's 3 games. It's literally, as we talk about the men having a small sample size to evaluate 6 games, we're looking at the women in 3 games, and it's even tougher to really figure out. But I think when you look at the big picture, you knock off Florida to start the year, you keep that win streak over a rival going. Brooke Wyckoff is starting to feel this team out in the rotations and what she can do. She's kind of feeling on that expanded role too. We have to kind of remind that, she knows this team inside and out, but now she's making every call courtside. So a lot to look forward to, I think, as the restart on the women's side comes about too after the holidays.
Yeah, and good stuff from you to hear today. I think that's a good spot for us to wrap up this episode. Thank you for listening. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you're tuning into the Osceola on our Twitter accounts. Head over to the site and continue to read. Please subscribe if you can. It's a great Christmas present for a loved one. Jerry, Pat, Bob, of course, and the entire team, they're working overtime to try and make sure that they're getting content up and doing it the best way they can. And fan experiences are a big thing. And hopefully in 2021, we can do more of those fan experiences. And, the Zooms, Bob, have been great. The happy hours have been great, doing whatever we can just to kind of keep a community together. Anything else that you want to touch on about the Osceola before we move into the holiday break?
I think let's kind of put a bow on 2020, right? With this kind of Christmas theme that we've had today. 2020 has been a tough year for everybody. We all admit it. But I challenged myself to sit down and write some positives with Florida State athletics in 2020. And I thought if I can get 5 written down, I'm going to write this story. Came up with 10. I think there's 10 good ones. So go to theosceola.com and you know what number 1 is going to be right. It was a regular season ACC title for the men, but we came up with some good ones, some of them that you might have forgotten about, and just wanted to kind of remind, even through the challenges, have a glass half full kind of mindset and enjoy some of the positive storylines that we got to see while watching the Noles this year.
Absolutely. And one other point I want to make, Florida State plays Clemson on Tuesday. We'll try to have an episode out next week right after that, and hopefully have Matt Minnick and Michael Rogner join us for a roundtable as we move into ACC play. And then Florida State women's basketball did add a game on December 31st against Virginia Tech. That'll be at noon on the road in Blacksburg. So December 31st, New Year's Eve basketball for Florida State women's, if you're a fan and you're watching that. So they did just add that game this week, and so they do have a game. Wanted to say Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays to all of you who celebrate. If you just celebrated Hanukkah, hope you had a great Hanukkah. If you celebrate Kwanzaa, I hope that's a great holiday for you and your family. And if you don't celebrate and you're not religious and just a Festivus for you, I hope you have a great weekend. And we appreciate your listenership always. Please share this with your friends if you can. The best Christmas present you could give us is a 5-star review on iTunes. Leave a comment for us as well. Those always help. Just let us know how we're doing, and we hope to talk to you after the holiday break. Until next time, Ariya, Massoudi, Bob Ferrante. This was Tuck Talk, and as always, go Noles.